Look with me in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you, and I ordained you a prophet to the nations. Finding your assignment in the kingdom. You are treasured. You are valued. Before I formed you in the womb, if it was true for Jeremiah, it's true for you. God says, I'm not talking in this scripture just about Jeremiah, but it's insight into all of us. Before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you, called you to an assignment, had a plan for your life, had a purpose for your life. And tonight I'm not talking about my assignment, because we're good at believing in other people's call, in other people's assignments, in other people's, potential greatness and all of that. But we don't see it in ourselves ever. And we call it humility when in reality, sometimes it's the spirit of intimidation and fear that causes us to feel unimportant. He said, you're treasured, you're valued. I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. And you have to understand what he's saying in verse 4. The word of the Lord came unto me, saying. First thing that you've got to know about finding your assignment is it's very significant to know that God can talk to you. We need to understand that God is still talking and still calling people and still speaking to people. And you have no value unless He tells you the things to dream that He wants you to dream. And the way He does that is He will speak to you. He will speak through the services. He will speak through preachers. He will speak through circumstances. But you've got to learn how to hear God's voice, and that's how He puts dreams in you, is He will speak to you. What I say means nothing. What others say about you means nothing. What God says is what really matters. Be very sensitive to what God says about you. You must hear God. I get amused at people who say, I'm gonna take a course on how to hear God's voice. Well, I've never had to take a course on when I call my mother and I hear my mother on the other line, I don't have to take a course on recognizing her voice. I know my mother's voice. And when you know Him, you know His voice. It's that simple. And you need to understand that it's important. The first thing He says about the purpose and the plan and the assignment of God is, number one, the word of the Lord came to me. There's a word for your life. Listen for it. There's a plan that God talks. And He's the one that thought up a mouth. He's the one that thought up a tongue. He's the one that thought up a voice box, and He knows how to talk to you. Then He says, before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. Before your mother saw you, before you knew that, you existed, I had a plan and called you. You need to understand that He has sanctified you, He goes on to say. Not only called you, but sanctified you, separated you, set you aside for His purpose. You are a walking reward for somebody. He said, I ordained you. I designed you. I scheduled you into the world. I designed you in the designing room of heaven. And if you don't have something that you think you need to be fulfilled, then you need to understand that He designed you. You didn't make yourself. And if you're not able to do something, quit trying to be something you're not and take the will of God as how He designed you. He designed you. You have an assignment on your life. Turn to somebody and say, you have an assignment on your life. You don't decide it, you discover it. A true assignment from God will showcase your inferiority. It will showcase your limitation. It will be bigger than you are and make you feel incapable of achieving it. when God first called me to preach, this whole chapter, I used to have a sermon I preached called The Left-Handed Deliverer. And I would bring it out. This is really, I think, the second or third sermon I ever preached. And I love this because it so spoke to me. Because when God called me to preach, I felt I knew that He was. I heard the word of the Lord come to me. You're called. I'm going to use you. You're going to go to nations. Da da da. And I was like, this is crazy. Who am I? I'm a child. I'm a youth. All of that. All of that. And I think there's something powerful. I think there's something strong about when you get that hold of that verse, and don't be afraid of their faces. I remember particularly, I would just almost have anxiety attacks. I felt like I was going to throw up. I just felt like I would get nervous and sick and worried. And, there's a difference between just anxiety about speaking in front of people and just being tormented with fear and intimidation. And one day I read that scripture in a Sunday school room. My brother and I were holding a revival, and I was down in the Sunday school room. We used to pray in the Sunday school rooms. I don't know why, but that's how we used to do it. And I was reading my Bible and praying, sitting in a little wooden chair. And he said, reading through this, and he said, and do not be afraid of their faces. I love that. That set me free. I ain't afraid of none of your faces. Don't be afraid of their condescending looks. Don't be afraid of their mouths, sucking their teeth. Don't be afraid of their smears. Don't be afraid of their cowards that attack you. Don't be afraid of their faces. And many times, like forward, when you go speak at a forward conference or something like that, and it's thousands and thousands of people there. You pray, you do everything. There's 4 things you do to preach a message. You study yourself full. You get everything you can get of the Word of God on that subject, as much as you can, from any and everybody you can get it, and get it in your spirit. Study yourself full. Then number 2, you pray yourself hot, because you study to get a message or a sermon, but you pray to get a message from God. Pray yourself hot. You got to pray. You got to pray. You got to pray. You got to pray. It's not, we've had enough talks. We need some prayer behind our work. So you study yourself full, you pray yourself hot, then you think yourself through. You have to think it through. Think that message through. Where is it going? How's it going to end? What do I have any life illustrations that I can put in here? Anything that I can say that will make it applicable to people's lives? Think it through. Did anything happen with my kids? Have I ever experienced this point? I don't know why. I must be getting a lot of y'all ready to preach, but this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Study yourself full, pray yourself hot, think yourself through, think it through. And then lastly, and this is the big point that has to do with don't worry about their faces. After you study yourself full and pray yourself hot and think it through, the last thing you got to do after you've done everything you know to do, set yourself free. Just set yourself free. Just set yourself free. Relax. Get up and do what God's called you to do, and don't worry about their faces. They might be making ugly faces because they ate something crazy for lunch. You don't know. It may not be your sermon. He said, don't worry about their faces. It's just a face. Turn to somebody and say, it's just a face. How people look at you. It's just how people accept you. It's just a face. For I am with thee. I love that. You're not in this by yourself. You didn't call you by yourself. And he said, therefore, I will put forth my hand and touch your mouth, Jeremiah. Now, here's another thing about your assignment. Your mouth is going to play a major part in your assignment. If God told him he had an assignment, It was going to require him to go to places in nations of the world. Then he gives him another huge insight that your mouth is going to play a major part of your assignment. Your ability to speak. He touched my mouth. There are two kinds of communication. What you tell others and what you tell you. Some people talk good to others and talk bad to themselves. They're kind to others and they curse themselves. You stupid, you idiot, you're ugly, you're dumb, you're no good, you'll never be anything, you're a loser, you can't do it. But they'll talk real kind, they communicate outwardly good to other people, but talk horribly to themselves. But God touched his mouth. Your future is not good until God touches your mouth. And suddenly, he begins to prepare you when he touches your mouth. Your preparation determines your performance. If you don't prepare, then you won't perform well. So prepare yourself for your assignment. Find what you truly love and build your life around it. You know, sameness creates comfort, but difference creates reward. We want to be like everybody else, and that's comfortable. But it's when you find that uniqueness that God has given you that you begin to connect to the rewards of life. Because nobody, if you're just like everybody else and just into what everybody else is into, then guess what? Then the field has just gotten really broad. But the more unique, and we're afraid of being different. We're afraid of being different. But it's the uniqueness that is your niche. Don't try to be like everybody else. Just be what God made you, full of the Holy Spirit. Discover your distinction. Identify your difference.